Chapter 1. The Gathering Storm. The walls of Oyo, the capital, sweated under a merciless sun. For decades, the Alaafin, King, Atiba II had reveled in the empire's past glory, ignoring the whispers of insolence from the southern kingdom of Dahomey. His generals, swollen with pride from past victories, dismissed the reports of a new military order in Dahomey, a corps of female warriors, the Mino, trained with a brutal efficiency. In the Alaafin's court, opulence masked rot. The aging prime minister, the Basharin, warned the king. "Sire, the women of Dahomey do not fight for tribute, they fight for blood. They have vowed to free themselves from the Oyo yoke." Atiba II merely chuckled, ordering more palm wine and a new horse for his cavalry. The first sign of danger was not a clash of swords, but silence. The sudden, eerie cessation of tribute convoys from the south. Chapter 2. The Vanguard of Vengeance. Queen TASI, the fierce and brilliant leader of the Mino, or Amazons, stood on the high ground overlooking the border town of Id. Her 6,000 warriors, armed with muskets and gleaming machetes, were a wave of disciplined crimson and black. TASI did not aim for the typical border skirmishes. Her target was the heart of Oyo's strength, the legendary cavalry. She had studied their predictable wedge formation. "The horses are their power," TASI declared to her lieutenants. "But the horse needs a path. We will give them a path of fire and broken earth." In a swift, brutal campaign, TASI's forces bypassed garrisons, setting fire to the tall grasses and forcing the heavy Oyo cavalry onto rocky, narrow trails where their numbers and speed were useless against disciplined musket fire. Chapter 3. The Shattering Hooves. The first major battle was a disaster for Oyo. General Kusa led 10,000 of the finest Oyo horsemen, expecting to charge through scattered skirmishers. Instead, they rode into a carefully orchestrated trap. The Mino did not meet them head-on but retreated into pre-dug trenches and defensive circles. As the horses charged, the women fired their muskets in volleys, aiming low to take down the horses first, effectively dismounting the formidable fighters. The ensuing hand-to-hand combat was shocking. The Oyo soldiers, trained to fight from horseback, were clumsy on the ground against the agile, furious Minas. Kusa was killed, and the remnants of his cavalry fled back to Oyo, spreading terror and the unbelievable tale of being defeated by a wall of screaming women. Chapter 4. The Fear in the Palace. The news hit Oyo like a physical blow. The proud Basharin, who had been skeptical, now wept openly. Alaafin Atiba II, however, became paralyzed, his confidence utterly shattered not by the enemy's strength, but by their nature. A sense of shame, that the great Oyo had been routed by a people they considered beneath them, led by women, crushed his will. He refused to mobilize the remaining reserve armies, claiming the gods must be angry. His court devolved into chaos. Ambitious chiefs argued over who should lead the defense, while others secretly began packing their treasures, preparing to abandon the city. The great chain of command had snapped, not from a siege, but from a single, humiliating defeat. Chapter 5. The Minas Advance. Queen TASI did not wait for Oyo to recover. She moved with relentless speed, using the fear she had generated as her greatest weapon. She bypassed lesser towns, sending a message ahead of her army: resistance is death, cooperation is freedom. The supply lines to Oyo were choked off, and the surrounding towns, seeing the Alaafins in action, began to close their gates against the capital, effectively isolating the once mighty city. Food became scarce. The proud citizens of Oyo, who had never known hunger, turned on the palace guards. The empire was collapsing from the outside in, hastened by the Mino's psychological warfare. Chapter 6. The King's Easy Surrender. The Mino did not need to fight for Oyo. They simply walked in. After a week of internal strife and starvation, the palace guards, desperate and unpaid, threw down their weapons and opened the main gate. The sight of Queen TASI, riding her war horse through the silent, terrified streets, was the final humiliation. Alaafin Atiba II, weak and stripped of his dignity, waited in his throne room. He did not ask for terms, nor did he beg for his life. In a moment of absolute psychological defeat, he simply handed his ceremonial sword to Queen TASI, a symbol of a surprisingly easy surrender. "You have taken my crown, Queen," he said hollowly. "What will you do with my people?" Chapter 7. A Plea to the Pale Men. TASI, however, did not want to rule the ruins of Oyo. Her goal was the complete independence and security of Dahomey. She imposed a massive, symbolic indemnity and ordered the abandonment of the current capital, decreeing that a new, smaller Oyo would rise far to the north, never again to threaten Dahomey. Alaafin II, now powerless but alive, saw his chance. He had heard of the pale-skinned Europeans, the Oyinbo, who were establishing trading posts and influencing coastal politics. Desperate to reclaim his lost power, and fearing the Dahomey influence would eventually lead to his execution, he secretly dispatched his last loyal messenger to the British outpost at Lagos. The message was dramatic, exaggerated, and crafted for maximum effect. "The Dahomey's savage women have taken my ancient throne. They will disrupt the entire trade route. Send your soldiers. Restore the legitimate king. The Oyo Empire will become a loyal protectorate of the British Crown." Chapter 8. The Arrival of the Redcoats. The British governor in Lagos, a man named Colonel Davies, saw an unprecedented opportunity. The complete collapse of the massive Oyo Empire under the pressure of the Amazons was a unique event that threatened regional stability and, more importantly, the flow of goods to the coast. The Alaafin's plea offered a perfect, low-cost path to secure a massive inland territory. Davies quickly dispatched a small, well-armed contingent of British-led African soldiers, redcoats, and diplomats toward the old Oyo Isle, ostensibly to mediate and protect British interests. They found TASI and Hermino already gone, having accomplished their goal, leaving a power vacuum and a terrified populace. The British were received not as conquerors, but as saviors by the remaining chiefs. Chapter 9. The Dawn of the Protectorate. The British force located the deposed Alaafin II, recognizing him as the only authority that could command the old loyalties. The treaty they drafted was swift and brutal. In exchange for restoring a new, smaller Oyo state to the Alaafin, far from Dahomey's reach, and protecting him from any further attacks, II signed away the sovereign right of the Oyo people. He declared the new Oyo state an official protectorate of the British Empire. The fall of the great, proud Oyo was thus cemented not by a long, valiant fight, but by the swift. The age of the Yoruba empires was over, and the age of the European colonizers had begun.